Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. With your host, Lee Martin, and co-host, Florence Myers-McSwine.
We want to welcome you back to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana show. And I tell you, we have a great show today, wouldn't you say, Ms. Florence?
Yes, we certainly do.
And, for our listeners and viewers, we want to thank you for continuing to listen and view our show. And we welcome your comments and everything. But we're here with the National Federation of the Blind Newsline. And for those ones that have just tuned in and trying to figure out what we're all about, we are blind citizens here in the state of Indiana. And there's great services that we have that we try to get information out to our community to enhance your knowledge about blindness and about blind citizens and how we are just normal citizens like everyone else. And we just strive and we have compassion for life and just a quest for life, just like everyone else. But we have certain programs that we're here with the National Federation of the Blind Newsline. And what we do with this particular service, it is a free service. And you'll learn more about it by watching our commercials, where citizens now can read newspapers, magazines, and look at TV guides and circulars from Target and Walmart. Also jobs search that we can do on NFB Newsline, the weather and things of that nature. And we'll talk more about that. The magazines that we have, Florence, I tell you, we have some great magazines. And we're going to talk about those more as we proceed through our program. So stay tuned. Learn more about resources, learn more about us as blind citizens, and learn more about our program, NFB Newsline, a free service, audio service that we can read newspapers from all over the world.
With my failing eyesight, I'm not able to read regular newspapers. And I'm not able to keep up with obituaries.
I've been a homemaker all of my life, but since my vision has failed, I wish I could read my favorite magazines.
Have you heard of the NFB Newsline?
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
Wow, I scored a touchdown when I found sports on NFB Newsline.
I enjoy reading TV guide listings on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind. We read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
Welcome back to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline, Indiana, and it's a pleasure to be here today. We have a special guest, Mr. Christopher Meyer. And Christopher, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, Christopher, we are excited today to have you as a guest. You have a lot of information for us, and I'm sure the audience is really, really going to love it. So, first, we'd like to find out a little bit about our NFB Newsline. So, have you subscribed to Newsline?
Yeah, I have. Since 2011, I think. 2011 or 2012, I've been a Newsline member, and yeah, I found it very useful.
Now, so you've been a subscriber to the NFB Newsline for quite some time. Now, what are some of the methods that you use to utilize the NFB Newsline?
Well, when I first started out in 2011, I just had gotten out of high school and I was living in Minnesota by myself. And so having the Target circulars then was really helpful because Target has its big headquarters there, and so I was able to use it for shopping because I was a broke college kid at that point. But then after moving back to Indiana for college, I just used it to stay connected with my community. And then once I had moved abroad for a year and moved back, just keeping a finger on the pulse of international publications like the BBC magazine and the Economist magazine and stuff like that.
So you moved abroad. Now you're a blind citizen and a blind student. So, what was your cause of blindness?
Yeah, so I've been blind since birth. We've got a genetic trait in our family that just so happens to mean we're really good at winning the jackpot, the blindness jackpot. So yeah, we, when I say we, I mean two of my sisters and I, we have the same condition, Leber's congenital amaurosis. Basically, it just means I've got like a blurry film on the back of my eye on the retina, which is like the lens of your eye. And so I've been, quote unquote, this way, air quotes, my whole life. And haven't really had to think about doing it otherwise.
Okay, now you mentioned genetics.
Yep.
And so your parents, were they blind also?
Nope. Nobody in my family history that we could find has this form of blindness or any blindness. So it was a total surprise for my parents.
So you grew up in Kokomo, Indiana?
Kokomo for age 7 to 17, but I lived in Germany until age 7.
Okay, so you were born in Germany, are you saying?
Kind of. I was born in, not really, I was born in Canada when my dad was on the military base, and then we moved to Germany. I know, I've got a weird story, man. But no, born in Canada. All my first memories are in Berlin, Germany in the 90s, which was really a cool place to be in the 90s. And then, and that's where I feel most at home, I would say, is there, and then now here in Indianapolis, because I grew up in Kokomo from age 7 to 17, 18, got out of high school, moved up to Minneapolis for a blindness training program we can talk about if you want. And then I moved back and finished out my college career here in Indy.
Okay, so going through high school here in Indiana, what were you confronted with as far as trying to get a proper education that you wanted to ascertain?
Well, first of all, we had to confront some of the misconceptions. My mom actually had to fight with the school system when we first moved from Germany, because the school system in Howard County did not want to provide education to what was then called mainstream education to 3 blind kids, because they'd never done it before. And so we had to fight with them and get access to Braille, access to TVI, teachers for the visually impaired. And it was a hard-won thing, but after that point, the school system really bought into it and provided us a lot of resources. My sisters and I were both advanced placement track students, so we really had to work our tails off, and a lot of people were part of that success. But we all graduated with very good grades, and we were set up for success for college. So it was hard, but hard work. I probably had to work harder than some, but you have to do that sometimes, and you keep moving.
Okay, and Christopher, now with your sisters, are you the oldest?
I'm the youngest of the
youngest.
3 blind ones. I'm the 4th of 8 kids in my family, so big family, a lot of love.
Okay.
Now, you attended college. Where did you attend college at?
I went to IUPUI here in Indianapolis.
Okay, now when you attended IUPUI, did you have any problems getting the proper tools that you needed to be successful there at IUPUI?
Oh yeah, you have issues pretty much anywhere you go. I kind of think it's probably better that we teach young blind people that you're going to have issues wherever you go. So get used to it and figure out what you're going to make of the situation. So yeah, all that to say, I did have issues. It's not an excuse, by the way, for bad accommodations anywhere, but it is just to say that, professors are 90% likely you're going to be their first blind student ever. And so you have to do a good job of communicating with them on terms that they can understand, which also means making friends with them as much as possible. And you need to develop a really good partnership with your disability services office, which I did not know that for the first 2 years, and I made a lot of mistakes, essentially thinking everything was an argument and I just needed to win. And that doesn't happen to be a very winning strategy over time. And so I took a break from school halfway through my college career and moved to Germany for a year, did a fellowship with the State Department, and then I came back with a lot more clear-eyed idea of, I need to make friends here, and with these people who are trying to help me, and I just need to finish up. So it was really good for me to step away for a year in between and kind of get my perspective back.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that your mother actually advocated for you and your siblings early.
Yep.
Now, when do you feel that you had gotten to the point where you were able to advocate for yourself, Christopher?
Well, I'd say I showed up this morning and I'm still learning. So whatever that tells you, I think that we're always growing. I think that really moving, I've always been one to learn the most when I get outside of my situation. That's why I moved away from after high school. That's why I moved out of the country for a year in college. And growing up in a different culture, in a different context, that's always brought me a lot of perspective. So I think I probably learned the most after my year abroad in college, because I realized once you move to a different country altogether, you realize how much you don't know. And that's actually one of the more powerful things you can learn in life, is how much you don't know. So coming back and realizing I also am a very relational person, that I was able to use those relationships for something good, which was finishing my college degree. Yep.
Well, you've done a lot of traveling, and I tell you, being an advocate. And we're going to take a small break, and we're going to come back with some more trails of Christopher, and a great young man, and I'm glad to have him on our show.
Sure.
So we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
I'm Danny Wayne Beamer, Program Manager of the Elder Blind Program at the Will Center in Terre Haute, Indiana. I introduce the NFB Newsline to seniors in 13 southwestern counties in Indiana. I also utilize the NFB Newsline for my radio station public affairs shows. The NFB Newsline. Experience it today.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I use NFB Newsline when reading Hammond Northwest Times.
Using NFB Newsline, I read the Christian Science magazine.
Dad, you read Jerusalem Post, too.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Live the life you want. Read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
We want to welcome you back to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline, Indiana. And we have our guest here, Christopher Meyer. And Christopher, it's been great talking with you, and you shared such information here in the last 8 minutes of our show. So we want to talk a little bit more about some of the tools that we use for this National Federation of the Blind Newsline, how people can access it. You know, we know now that they can access it by using a landline phone. We have an app on the iPhone, and we have you can also access it on the Android, and you can also access it using the Talking Book and Braille Library digital player from the Library of Congress, which is also free. And I also mentioned that the Talking Book and Braille Library here in the state of Indiana is one of our sponsors for NFB Newsline. And you can also use your computer, a device called the Victor Reader Stream from the HumanWare. And there's multiple devices that you can use to access this free service, where you can listen to over 500 newspapers and magazines, as Christopher mentioned, international publications. This is all free. And for the first time, you know, blind consumers can basically, here in the state of Indiana, if you want to read the Indianapolis Star, the Hammond Times, all the times throughout the state, we just have multiple cities that you can listen to. And it's just a great tool, wouldn't you say, Florence?
It definitely is a great tool. And
You've also got tools like the device I've got here on my lap, which is Braille Note Touch, just a small computer for a blind person to be able to use Braille on the go, which Braille is just a really important tool. I'm sure you guys know that. Has made my life a lot easier. I was fighting it until I was in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and then I decided to use it, and who knew? My grades went up from D's and F's to all A's overnight. Who knew? You could, if you learn to read, you get a lot further in life.
Yeah, I mean, just being blind, you learn multiple ways of trying to access information, because we do know that being informed citizens make you have better informed decisions. And Braille is a great tool. As our organization say, Braille readers are leaders. And Christopher, you are really growing to be a great leader.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
You know, even with that Braille note there, we can make sure that we want to get this information out. Even the deafblind now can utilize NFB Newsline.
Well, and along with that, you know, the whole world of tactile, of being able to touch something and use your hands and get your hands onto it, that's something that really changed my experience of the world. Earlier, I talked about briefly taking a year abroad in Germany with the State Department, and what I learned over there was that there was a lot more tactile experiences in Europe in general. For blind people mostly, but it was built into the environment. So they had, you know, at all of the train stations, they had pads that would say, hey, there's a train, you know, there's a train line here, don't step any further than that. You would feel it with your feet. Or, you know, they had these models about, you know, the size of this coffee table here that would be a full mile of the train station, so that you could feel your way around it and get familiar with it and really make a mental picture in your head for yourself. So anyway, all of that to say, I know Braille is important, but I really think that overall we need to make the world more touch-friendly for blind people, and we need to be not so afraid to teach kids that, you know, get your hands dirty, you know, put yourself out there and really experience the world and travel and do all this stuff, and use the gifts that you have, because blind people, man, they have a lot of gifts, and your tactile perception is one of them.
Now, that's a great segue into what we need to talk about you know, what you're doing to promote that here in the States. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Sure. So I came back from Germany on this fellowship, finished that up in 2015, and I had to finish my college degree, which that's important. So whoever's watching and thinking about finishing college, if you haven't done it, you are better off doing it. I won't say you should do it, but I'll say you're better off doing it. So I had to finish my degree, and I was partway between a business degree and a nonprofit management degree. I took the nonprofit route and got my degree. But along the way, I realized I'd lived in Germany and seen all these really neat tactile models that I thought made a big difference for me, and I wanted to bring more of that back to the States. Now, we have some of these kinds of tactile experiences in museums, for example. That's maybe like the one kind of environment that we've actually done that well here in the US nowadays. But it used to be in the 30s, 40s, and 50s that we had models of these buildings all over the place. You could find old models of these buildings, of public buildings, and for whatever reason, we just stopped building things to last like we used to build large train stations and that sort of thing. And so we stopped investing as much money in them. And one of the things that went out the window was these tactile models for blind people and sighted people alike. So I came back and I found that niche, and I've been trying to work in that niche now. I know I've introduced myself to pretty much all the companies here in the US that would do anything with this. There's only a couple. I've met them, and we're working on, a couple different projects right now. We've done a couple projects. My company that I started has done a couple projects here in Indianapolis, which is where we have connections. But basically what we do is we make three-dimensional models of public facilities for blind people. And we make those available at the facility, whether it's a train station or a bus station or an airport, or you can do shopping malls, any of it. So we make that available, and it's just one more way. It's not the way, but it's one more way for a blind person to build a picture of a space and then be able to then master that space, navigate through it, get where they need to go, and just have a lot more confidence, hopefully, as well. Yeah.
Now, Christopher, I'm listening to you talk about what you're doing, and I'm kind of picturing that creative mind of yours.
Yep.
And so have you always been creative like this, or was it elevated after you went abroad?
It was there. I would say I've always had a good sense for people, maybe a little bit more charisma, able to hear what people are saying and connect the dots. So I've always been creative with people. I didn't always have a specific product or a thing to be creative with. So this gave me a thing to be creative with, but I've really always been very good at hearing people, listening to them, and having a lot of empathy. I don't know, it's developed over time, that one.
So what would you say is kind of driving this passion?
A desire to help people, and I think a belief in doing the right thing and doing things that are good for others and making that my mission. So that's a big reason why I chose the nonprofit track. But I then circled back around and realized you can do this as a for-profit company. You can help people no matter where you're at. It's just a matter of what's motivating you every day. So I would say a desire to do good is really what drives me.
Well, desire to do good, and the things that you're doing, you're going to help out so many people. We just got to get these corporations to listen to you.
Yep.
So we're going to take a short pause, and we'll be right back to end our show. And Christopher, we are sharing such more information, and we have more information to share. And people will catch that as they watch our commercials. So we'll be right back.
I just graduated college as a blind student. How can I independently find job listings?
Thanks to the National Federation of the Blind, visually impaired Hoosiers can hear newspapers, circulars, and magazines from across the globe.
It is a fantastic service.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
Welcome back, and Christopher, tell me what's going on next in your business venture.
So right now, we're pulling together everything we've learned recently. There's some technologies that are going to make tactile models be able to give speech output along with the tactile. So that's pretty big. We are wrapping up our big project at the Indianapolis airport, which means that there will be a tactile model of their space at the guest services desk in the next 1 to 2 months. We've already got a prototype there. We've got a couple projects we're looking at taking on with several of the museums here in central Indiana, bigger museums. And, sky's the limit there. I will say not having a business background has been a real challenge in starting a business. And so I'm looking at going back for a grad school program. Most likely it'll be an MBA, which is a master's in business, or a law degree, because law is a very useful tool, especially for somebody who wants to do good like I do.
Okay, so you'll be doing that over at IUPUI or something?
Yeah, that'd be the goal.
All right, then. So, now, you come a long way, and I'm sure there's people you want to give credit to.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, you guys for having me on the show today. I appreciate that. It is a huge asset to have a community organization like yourself, giving people a voice, so thank you. I would say, Florence had asked earlier about my mom. My mom is a huge part of my success, and I love her very much. And she didn't just fight for the little 7-year-old kid to get into the public school. She kept pushing me along when I didn't believe in myself, and that is a thing for little kids. They don't believe in themselves a lot of the time, and so she kept me moving and kept putting open doors in front of me. She didn't know, though, what all my rights were, and so organizations like the National Federation of the Blind of Indiana, they were really helpful. They provided the legal recommendations for my mom along the way, and just helped her realize, the law is on our side. It doesn't have to be an uphill battle. It's supposed to be a pretty straightforward win. So it was the NFB involved, it was my mom, it was the folks, the admin who were originally opposed to us being a part, who then became some of our best advocates as well, and brought our teachers on board. So really, I have a large amount of people to thank. I would even thank my high school paraprofessional, Jen Goad in Kokomo. She's an amazing woman as well. So like I said, you bring all these people together and you get a lot more than the sum of its parts.
Wow.
Yeah.
As we state, every day we raise the expectations of blind citizens because we know that obstacles that are placed before us. And you are great, and we're thankful to have you on our show because you're achieving, and we just thank you so very much for coming on to our show. Take good care.
Thank you. You too.
The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 855-963-6476. That's 855-963-6476. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.